We'll go back to Ashley Gillen in the studio inside Parliament House, who's joined by another Labor MP this morning. Ash?
Thank you, David. Yes, Kelvin Thomson joins me. He's one of these MPs who's been in the undecided bunch for the last few days. Kelvin, talk us through your decision-making process. You ended up deciding to back Julia Gillard. Why?
Ashley, over the years I've been a very strong supporter of Julia Gillard, and I didn't think a leadership ballot was necessary. But given that we had one, I thought it was appropriate to do that. To give my constituents the opportunity to express views to me about this issue, and plenty of them did. But secondly, because I don't subscribe to the doom and gloom scenarios that have emerged from both camps. You know, the doom and gloom scenario about Kevin Rudd was that he was a one-man band and impossible to work with and so on. But as against that, I've seen him in action at the United Nations. He's had people there eating out of his hand. He is a very impressive person. Secondly, he is genuinely popular. That's been clear enough over the course of the last week in a whole variety of ways. And thirdly, I think it is possible for people to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes and to come back as better leaders as a consequence. And you know, you've seen that historically. People like Robert Menzies and Winston Churchill and Bill Clinton and so on weren't outstanding successes at their first go at leadership, but later on made very successful leaders. But equally, I don't subscribe to the doom and gloom scenario about Julia Gillard, the idea that she can't lead us to an election victory. And today's results, poll results, underscore that very strongly. The fact is that our primary vote at 35 is the highest it's been in a year, and two-party preferred, we're at 47%. That is a reason. It's not a great position, but it is a reasonable position to be in. And people have said to me they think that Julia ought to be given the opportunity to continue doing the things that she's been doing the work that she's been doing.
What was the overwhelming consensus of your constituents, the ones you spoke to? We know Kevin Rudd put out this call to arms asking his supporters to call their local MPs. What were they saying to you?
Well, in one sense you might say they weren't much help, because they were quite divided, and there were people who were very pro-Kevin and there were people who were very pro-Julia, and you know, the people will say to you, listen, we are not going to vote for you again if you vote for this one or for that one. I think within my electorate they were evenly divided. Beyond the electorate, I think there is support for Kevin. That was reflected in polling and so on generally, and that was my own experience. But
it's dangerous to be dismissive of those opinion polls, isn't it? Because that's the view of the people.
It's not a question of being dismissive of the opinion polls, and I agree that we should not. But I think it is clear enough from the opinion polls that we are a long way away from being dead in the water, and people who are writing us off, and I know there are people out there who, you know, they want to write us off and say that Labor is battered and bloodied and bruised and can't come back from this and so on, but there are clear messages in the polls here that we are at least in as good a situation as the Keating government was after all the Hawke-Keating wars, and as the Howard government was in the lead up to the 2001 election, where we thought we were going to win on the back of the big reform, the GST, but we did not. So the idea that our political position is terminal or irreparable damage has been done, I think that's quite wrong.
You mentioned the Keating analogy. Well, he's been used in terms of a second strike that we could see Kevin Rudd do. He has again denied this morning in a TV interview. He says he will not try to challenge Julia Gillard again. He's happy to go to the backbench if he loses today. What is the likelihood, do you think, of him sticking to that? And again, if the polls don't turn around, what's the likelihood of a third candidate coming through?
Ashley, I take Kevin at his word about that matter, as about others. But secondly, I think when people want to talk about the hypotheticals, you know, what might happen in the future, will Kevin challenge again, or will there be a third candidate and so on, frankly, they seek to keep the focus on leadership and prevent us from doing the thing which we need to do, which is to focus on the issues, on solving people's problems, on good public policy. People have been saying to us, people in the media have been saying to us, you must have a ballot, you must resolve this issue, and this has been There's been
there
has been a steady drumbeat of this going on for months, saying we must have a leadership ballot. The matter of Kevin Rudd has to be resolved. So we are having a leadership ballot, but we find people that are onto us straight away saying what is going to happen further on down the road, and asking us all these hypothetical questions, which I think, frankly, prevent us from doing what we want to do and what the public wants us to do, which is to focus on the real issues. The cost of living issues, the environmental issues, the social policy issues, disability, traffic congestion. There are all sorts of perfectly good issues out there which require our attention.
Are you disappointed in the behaviour of some of your colleagues over the last few days, calling Kevin Rudd a psychopath, a liar, saying he demeans people? The vitriol has just, I mean, it really is quite bitter.
I have sought to shy away from this myself, and indeed I've been very impressed by both candidates in what they've had to say to me and the vision that each of them has for our country. But I don't think either it's a question of saying this is the end of the world because certain people are saying what they think. Frankly, I think the public had a suspicion back in 2010 that things were swept under the carpet and that they hadn't got to hear the real story. Well, I don't think they can say that now. I think people have been letting it all hang out in a big way, and you just get some impression that there are people in the public who are more reassured when they hear what we really think than when they think they're being given spin and not being told the truth. Now, having said that, of course we cannot continue to have the focus on leadership and the focus on ourselves, and I don't enjoy it, and I don't think most of my colleagues enjoy it. The focus needs to go on solving people's problems, no question about that.
Kelvin Thomson, appreciate your time. Thank you for that today. And Kieran Gilbert, that is the big challenge now for Labor, isn't it? Just how do they move on from this? How do they convince Australians that they are going to unite and become one happy family again?
In the meantime, it's been